Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs.
We're Laryssa and Liz, jewelry marketing experts with a combined 16 years of experience in jewelry marketing and proven track records in helping jewelry brands meet their goals. When you listen to or watch this podcast, you get an intimate and exclusive peek behind the curtain of all the things you wish you could know about earning success in this industry.
Welcome to episode 65. In this episode, Laryssa and I are going to kick off the new year with an episode about planning. We'll share how to get started with your yearly planning. We also want to tell you about our insider community. When you join, you'll have access to extended episodes full of tips that you can start implementing today and further resources about each topic we discuss. In the bonus content of this episode, we'll dive deeper and share more details about creating your plan and specifically content planning. To get access to exclusive content as well as direct access to me and Laryssa, sign up by visiting successwithjewelry.com. Hey, Laryssa, let's get into it.
I love talking about planning.
I know, I love planning too. It really does make everything work better in your business, and it does lead to success. Actually, all year in the Stay Gold Collective with designers I work with, through this podcast, we're talking about planning and staying consistent and how important that is. And I've seen it pay off for some of the designers I work with towards the end of the year, like that huge last minute Christmas sale that they weren't expecting is coming from clients that they've messaged with or directly contacted or has been seeing their content all year long, and it's paying off now. So it does take a long time.
And I really feel like having a plan, it just helps your mental health a little bit too.
Definitely.
Because if you've got it all like straight in your mind, it's all organized, it helps you just feel more confident, more centered, more focused. Otherwise, you're just going to be flailing a little bit in your business.
That's so true. And also, before we get started, I just wanted to remind people, and we'll touch on this more, but look at your numbers, because I've been hearing a lot of talk and there's like a lot of conversation out there about small businesses being down this year, or, the economy really hurting small business. But feelings aren't facts. So I really encourage you, if you're feeling down about your own business, or you're feeling like, your numbers are down, make sure you actually look at them first, because if your numbers are up, which they might be, that is amazing. And that's something to really celebrate. But even if your numbers have remained steady this year, that's amazing too, because it has been a strange, challenging year for a lot of businesses. I mean, that is true from what I'm hearing, but you don't know that in your business till you look at your numbers. I just wanted to put this out there before we get started, because I know I've just been hearing a lot of chatter, and I don't want everybody to get super negative going into 2024. I also want to say, if your numbers are down, then it's just time to strategize and look at what worked and what didn't and do more of what's working.
When I saw your note, Liz, that you said feelings aren't facts, I like wanted to go in there and like bold, underline, italicize that, because I've had this experience with my clients. We come to a meeting and they're all like depressed and anxious and upset that the year isn't going well. And I pull up the report and I'm like, green, 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 green. Look at all these things we've done better. And they're shocked and amazed because they're coming from a place of like fear and uncertainty when the data is telling otherwise.
Yes. So look at your numbers. And this is another reason why reporting all year long is so helpful, because then you have something to really look at and you don't have to do a ton of work pulling like a full year. I think also we're going to get into this, especially in the extended episode, but with your numbers when it comes to like email subscribers and open rates and click-through rates and social media numbers and things like that, same is true. And I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, well, what's the point of Instagram anymore? My numbers are so down. But I would say that if you look at your sales, if you look at also like the numbers at a bigger, like, further back, like monthly and yearly, you'll see that they're actually not that bad.
Yeah. So don't let your feelings cloud the facts.
Totally. All right, let's get into how to get started with planning. So we mentioned this at the top of the episode, but review your sales report. Something else I find when I'm talking to designers about their year is they'll think they sold mostly earrings. And then turns out after looking at the report, it was mostly rings. So looking at the actual numbers to understand what category you sold the most of and also what price point you sold the most of is really important.
Yeah, that can really help you with your product development strategy, with your merchandising. You don't want to be doing this stuff by intuition.
So true. And also, like we said, review all of your monthly reports. So, what were your top social media posts? What type of content were people drawn to? Is there an email that you sent out with a high open rate and click rate? Like, notice all of that and take notes.
Definitely. And if you did promos throughout the year, might be painful to like look back on some of this stuff because not everything goes as planned, but it's important to be real and honest with yourself. Like what did well, what didn't do well? Can you make educated guesses about why? Like was it timing? Is it just the economy? Was it the way you presented it, the lead up that you did to the promotion?
Taking notes on this, if you haven't done this past year, doing it going forward will help you so much because taking notes right after something happens versus a year later, you'll see a huge difference in kind of the nuances of like what you remember and what actually happened and all of that. So, if you haven't been taking notes after promotions or launches, definitely do that.
Mhm.
So, when it comes to actually creating your plan, you want to think about like what are the marketing channels you're focusing on. And I even had a chat with a designer earlier this week and they were like, should I throw TikTok into the mix? And I'm like, you're not consistent yet with Instagram and email marketing, so start there, because we know that's working. And then she also has a Facebook audience, which not everyone does, but she does. So I'm like, focus on Facebook, Instagram, and email marketing, and then once you're streamlined in that, then you can think about TikTok.
I had that very same issue yesterday where like this client's coming to me, they have amazing ideas. Actually, I'm like really impressed by all these things that they want to do, but my marketing brain is like reining it in. I'm like, hold on. We need to we need to pull this back a little bit. Like we're still working on foundational stuff. You can't do all these amazing things. It's going to all fall down if the foundation is not right. So in that case, like have a spreadsheet with your ideas and think about, well, I love all these things. How can I get to a point where these will make sense for me?
I think that and I find a lot of designers have a lot of ideas, which is amazing. I love working with creative people because they do always have so many good ideas. But I find that simplifying and focusing on like one thing a quarter or like, one idea, like big idea a quarter is probably a better idea because I find with a lot of designers who are kind of stuck getting not getting traction but have tons of ideas, they're not getting the traction because they're kind of throwing all these things at the wall to see what sticks and not giving any of it enough time to like really get through to their audience.
Yeah, that is the benefit of maybe working with a consultant or some, even if it's like a once in a while, like consultation with a marketing expert, because people like that, the idea people, they really need like a filter person who's going to help them understand like which ideas will make sense strategically and which don't right now.
And you need somebody from the outside too, because sometimes it's really hard when you're like, you have all these ideas in your head or like, on your notepad or whatever, and you're not sure how it's coming through to somebody on the outside. So touching base with somebody is always super helpful.
Mhm.
So other things to think about is in terms of like where do you want to put your focus outside of like your content marketing channels is do you want to do trade shows or do you want to do retail events? A lot of this people probably have signed up for already and you might kind of have a good idea of at least the first half of your year. But if you're thinking retail events and you haven't like decided which ones you're doing, now's a great time to do that. If you're going to do trade shows, it's a little quick to think about like the February shows, but you could think about like the market week in Vegas, which is in like the end of May, June, or you can think about the August market weeks in New York. So think about those things and what you want to do, where you want to focus. And something I just want to reiterate, even though I kind of already said this, but don't jump to try new things. You want to focus and then expand. Yes, you do need to try things. You need to, try a new trade show, try a new retail event, maybe try TikTok. Maybe that is the direction you want to go, but you don't want to just jump. You want to make sure it aligns with your strategy and you have time to put focus to it. Okay, so something else to touch on is direct outreach. So I think that everyone should go into their new year with a plan to directly outreach and create a prospect list. If you don't have a prospect list, I would create one that focuses on your wholesale business, what stores you want to be in touch with. If you don't have a wholesale strategy, create a prospect list for direct to consumer clients that you want to stay in touch with, because that direct outreach is going to go a long way for you and your business. You can also do this and create a prospect list for editors you want to stay in touch with as well, but that will help your plan rather than saying, oh, I want to do PR or I want to do wholesale. Having the actual prospect list will help you stay on top of that, and work towards it. Like, be sending outreach, be contacting these people versus just thinking about it.
I think universally, the one thing that designers hate and struggle with is this direct outreach. It's like kind of scary, it's tedious, it's uncomfortable, but I don't know, you have to do it. You just you have to do it. It's like you have to go to the dentist.
You have to do it. And now more than ever, because there's so much noise in the marketplace, you have to do it. The thing with outreaching editors and retailers is that they don't respond a lot of times. Sometimes they do. But I promise you, I've done enough interviews with editors and retailers, and I've talked to enough of them to know that they look at their emails. Even if it's just the subject line, who it's from, your name sticking in their head, they don't have time to respond to all of the emails they get, although many of them do try. So just when you create this outreach strategy, you need to stay on top of it and not give up after sending one email.
And the thing is, in this industry, like Liz said, they're gonna see your name. It's gonna like go in their mind somewhere, even if they're not interested right now. In this industry, people run in the same circles. You might run into this person somewhere. And then when you introduce yourself, they'll be like, oh, yeah, that sounds really familiar. Like, how do I know about you? And it's just making these like subconscious connections with people.
Totally. And I think just people are engaging less because there's just so much content out there, but it doesn't mean they're not seeing it. I spoke with an editor recently and we were talking about outreach from designers and how it's like tough because a lot of times they don't get responses. And she's like, when I see something I like that I maybe can't use now, but can use later, I put it in a folder and I come back to it. So just keep that in mind when you're outreaching. It's a form of marketing. Keep going, have your plan, stick with it because it will pay off.
Absolutely.
So the other thing to mention in your plan is to set a budget. This is a pretty important piece of it. A marketing budget is typically 10% of your revenue. I don't love numbers. I don't love setting a budget, but it does help you decide, obviously what to invest in and then also what to say no to when you get an opportunity that's like, you have to sign up in the next 24 hours to receive this rate. You're able to say no because you already have your budget and you already know what you're focused on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think too, if you're like in the earlier stages of your business, you actually have to invest a little more in marketing. That probably sounds counterintuitive because you're not making like that revenue yet. But in order to like establish yourself and build that brand awareness, remember to invest in your business.
Definitely. And we have a whole episode about that. I forget what number episode that is, but we've talked about that in depth. If you want to
Yeah.
listen to that. But things to factor in like show fees, monthly fees on platforms like MailChimp, Later, etc., consultants, employees, marketing materials like postcards or mailers, all of your packaging, your photography, your web design, all of this goes into your marketing budget. And then the last thing to really think about is how are you going to implement all of this? So that's something to consider. Are you going to outsource it? Are you going to block off time to do it yourself? And if you decide you're going to do it yourself, actually block off the time. That's a really helpful thing to do. Like, maybe you haven't even gotten started on all this stuff, but knowing that you're going to be doing all of your own photography, for example, block off time so that's on your calendar so you don't ignore it or you just don't do it.
Yeah. If you don't have the money to invest in the marketing support, you're gonna have to do it yourself. But doing it yourself means you have to do it yourself. Like,
So
unfortunately.
and then the last thing we'll wrap up with is that all of these things that you're deciding to do, like I said about like when you're going to be doing your photography or your marketing or whatever you decide you're doing yourself, putting it on a calendar, also put all of these big events on a calendar. Even if you're just applying to a show, a trade show or a retail show or anything like that, put it on the calendar so you know when it's coming. So that when you look at the year, you kind of know what's going on. Also, collection launches, any major sales or promotions, application deadlines that you need to remember, put all of this on a calendar.
Yes.
All right. So, have you started planning for 2024? Was this helpful? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com.